Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you very much, Wouter, for having us here. My name is Atul Wahi, and I work for companies like Philips, Samsung, Panasonic in the field of connected lighting, LED lighting, and most recently in the IoT space. Recently, I've started my own consulting business, which is called SVITCHED, where I consult with organizations in IoT, SaaS, and also with connected lighting. And moving forward, we'll be supporting organizations with net zero, how they can cut their carbon emissions. And when Peter came to me with this opportunity for the talk, I thought it's a fantastic opportunity to discuss what's happening in our industry. So that's me.
I look forward, Atul, to discuss with you, and we will make a little bit of a dynamical discussion, right? We will try to disagree a bit and see where we come together. So my name is Peter Duine. I work for Signify, and indeed I met Atul earlier in his career when he was working for Philips. So Philips is the old name of the company that I'm now working for, Philips Lighting. And what I'm doing is I'm bringing connected lighting to the market for Signify in the office space. So I have a dedicated task to work for office space. And I'm going to do a little discussion with Atul on the future of offices and how lighting can play a role. And I will first start by making a bold statement, perhaps bringing everybody to an understanding of what the future of a building is going to be if people think here on the call about a self-driving car. Right, everybody I think has learned about self-driving cars, and I think maybe many people agree that it's going to come, right? In one way or the other, it's going to come. And there will be beautiful applications, like I'm dreaming of the fact that I will drive my car to downtown city, I press a button called park, and the car automatically goes to a parking lot somewhere in the outskirts of the city. And when I'm done partying, then I will pull up my app from my phone and the car comes back to me, right? So everybody understands the use case of a self-driving car. And in the future, we will have self-driving buildings, not really driving, but self-organizing, right? They will organize themselves. Whether the amount of people are like really a lot of people in the building or a small amount of people in the building, whether the weather is really good or really bad, the building will organize itself. And for that, obviously, the building needs data. And my statement is that lighting can provide data in an office building. Lighting goes actually very well together with the use case we call occupancy detection. So when you walk into the room, the lights go on. When you walk away, the lights go off. That is to detect an occupant, yes or no. And obviously, that type of data, together perhaps with beaconing, lights also are quite well utilized to do beaconing, either Bluetooth or visual beaconing. That together with occupancy sensing will form an important ingredient of smart buildings. Wouldn't you agree, Atul?
I think that's thank you for sharing this analogy with self-driving cars and smart buildings, autonomous buildings. I definitely see that also happening within the building industry. For me, it's very interesting. When I speak to facility managers and some of these building users and building owners, they come across so many different protocols. With different systems. You have the lighting systems, then you have the HVAC systems, you have the security systems, you have the blinds for to cut the light down. So having a whole host of different systems, there are different set of protocols. And the challenge of these companies and individuals come across is how do you make all these systems talk together? What is that synergy between these systems that you can bring together so that, exactly what you said at the start, how can you get data from these disparate system? And that is still a challenge with many of the systems out there. So although it sounds very interesting that we will have autonomous buildings in the future, but I still see that there is this challenge of disparate systems. And coming from a lighting perspective, I'd like to know from you, how does Signify, let's say, play a role here?
We are far away, Atul. I like that you challenge me a little bit from having a unified standard. And even though, and you know me a little bit, Atul, I like to put the dot on the horizon, right? I see the future. And even though that future is very well understood, right? Everybody understands that self-driving buildings, it's going to be a massive, nice innovation, right? And it will probably be more sustainable and better for people. And everybody agrees that that's the future. We have these hurdles, right, to take. And you rightfully point out, Atul, that lighting is a thing to organize. But then there are many other things, and even lighting can perhaps be done in many different ways, right? There are many protocols in lighting even that organizes the lights. So how will you come to a more unified approach? And for that, we are obviously working quite hard, actually. So you hit the nail on the head, Atul. The type of work that I'm currently doing mostly involves how to make interfaces, how to make sure that other people, maybe even bigger organizations than Signify, we work, for instance, with companies that I would describe as building management system companies, like the big Honeywell, Schneider, Siemens. You know probably these big companies, right?
Sure.
And they obviously also struggle to come close to the tenant and derive value for the tenant on the basis of all of these moving targets, right? Moving technology, moving stuff, everything is innovating, right? Everything is moving. But eventually, working together, which is actually something that is quite in the nature of lighting. Lighting has always been able to standardize and to come to a single solution that works well for everybody. That indeed should be the way forward. And we are doing that both in the cloud as well on-prem. So we are looking to integration, we call that integration, on our cloud interfaces, so the data is available on the cloud. But also do that for critical things on the building, coming, for instance, on-prem, coming, for instance, to the analogy of the car. If you hit the brakes, for sure, in a self-driving car, there will not be a request to the cloud, right? To see, hey, can we slow down this car? That's not going to happen, right? That control will be on-prem. And so therefore, the mission critical things of a building will certainly be on-prem.
Got it. Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Peter. I think what I understand is that there are hurdles, but you're working on it with a number of different manufacturers, and it's absolutely clear that this is going to be a concerted effort in the industry, and it's part of the ecosystem to find really a solution. That brings me to really the next question, which I've been thinking about. You probably very well know from JLL the rule of thumb, which is 3:30, which is to 300 in terms of dollars, which is, let's say, the utility cost, the rental cost, and the payroll per square meter. And from my understanding, basically, 10% of boost in productivity can give you really a $30 return on investment. So really, the question is, whether within this particular space, are you looking at the aspect of energy efficiency, or are you looking at boosting productivity so that it also helps people's well-being? And obviously, boosting productivity has far more greater business benefits. What is your take? Considering you are really the infrastructure behind these smart buildings, how do you see this play out within your ideas.
Yeah, I like your challenge, the second one that you bring here, Atul. Everybody loves to be relevant for the productivity, right? The biggest money is on the $300, as you put it, right? That's the JLL equation. The biggest one is
Yes.
the productivity. And if everybody aims to do that, not sure if there's anybody that really cracked the nut and could make a measurable contribution to that. Or maybe it is measurable, maybe people enjoy it, but there's a next best alternative, which may be easier, which may be even more pleasant for the occupants of the building, right? So the race is not over on the $300. So therefore, I take a very humble approach to first make the race on energy efficiency and space utilization. So I mentioned already occupancy detection, right? That goes very well to lights. Lighting is always a use case of occupancy detection. And my first goals will be to optimize the space and the use of space on the basis of that data. That could be relevant for facility manager, right? To look at historical space utilization, to see by what days in the week people return to the office, right? Which is now currently a bit erratic. And also do it real time. We have a sensor that even can count people, so you can find a free desk in the space. But on productivity, maybe I bring you back to my opening statement, Atul, the self-driving car, and explain a bit my humbleness over there on the productivity. I mentioned this park use case, right? And I see, of course, that on the car itself, there may be many automated elements in that self-driving car, right? Many features, many functionalities will be self-automated. And I look, for instance, to lighting in an equivalent to perhaps windshield wipers, the ones that clean your window, right? If you drive in the rain. So of course they have a very relevant function, right? The window needs to be clean in order to see, right? So it's a very, very relevant use case. And I think also lighting is relevant, right? Lighting needs to be there in order to see, right? And maybe this self-driving car can use the data that comes from this window thing, the shield, the wiper, right? Because when people are driving in a heavy rain, they plug it up all the way to the max wiping speed, and that data point might be relevant, right? Might be a relevant data point. But it will not organize the park functionality, right? That bigger functionality is for somebody else to organize. And so lighting should be perhaps a bit humble to say, okay, we can contribute, but we will never make a self-driving building, right? We need others to do that.
Great, and I'm totally with you on that, Peter. I think you've again, your analogy with the Viper, I absolutely love it. I think as you say, lighting has a role to play, of course, a bigger role to play because it's ubiquitous. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And that also brings me to the point where you said, say for example, it can help power indoor air quality sensors because talking about productivity earlier. That could be a place which I have also seen talking to building owners and facility managers. Now, also the question when you mention about energy efficiency and occupancy as one of the clear benefits using the lighting infrastructure, climate change. What we are seeing more and more is a bigger topic. It's for real. We are seeing that over 40% of CO2 emissions are from buildings, and I would say it's a duty of our industry to take steps to curb or help with finding ways to mitigate the effects of climate change. And of course, there comes the talk of smart buildings, where lighting, as you say, is providing this infrastructure. But then, what are we doing with additional intelligence, for example? To make buildings autonomous, what are we doing? How are we taking the data, for example, with the weather data outside, and how is that actually affecting the building inside? And the data then being used to further optimize building management systems to improve energy efficiencies, which includes, of course, lighting. So this is something which I'm seeing from my perspective more and more as a and as a starter. Do you share the same views, or how do you see your opinion?
No, it's spot on, and it's a little bit a humble role, right? It's not a big fancy thing. As you indicate, maybe today's buildings are reactive, right? They react to a certain situation, but with the data from the lights, it can be proactive and can save a lot of energy, right? And indeed, you mentioned that buildings are still consuming quite a bit of energy, and they will probably be on a target, right? To, I don't know, in 2030, or I forgot the details there, but somewhere we should reduce, right, the climate gas. And if you now organize your lights, in 7 years from now, the energy will be much more expensive. And so you need to deal with that, right? And that's what we can do and offer as an optimization towards sustainability, which is a very good role in a way.
Absolutely, Peter. And I think that is the key, where you mentioned that, all these technologies, including lighting, coming together to reach these targets, including the net zero 2030 target, which it's quite important for us as an industry to come up with a solution, or at least be part of the solution. So would you say now's the time to open up for questions from others?
Yeah, speaking of time, maybe Wouter, you can take over, right? I think we have now the opportunity to answer questions if there are, or maybe you have a question, Wouter.
Yeah, for sure. I have some questions. Amazing masterclass on the future of smart buildings. But I have a question on, I think for new buildings, this is probably easy to realize because the technology is there. It's easy to put in when you start, as a developer, start thinking of it, of course. But how are we coping with all these existing buildings all over the world? That's like 90% that we have right now. It's pretty old buildings. How are we going to help them to become a little bit more smarter?
It's accelerating renovation, Wouter. So what we can do, what we can offer, is a wireless technology. And even if you would be a building owner that will only look to replace lights, nothing more, just only lights, we can be in business by offering that as a wireless connected technology. No need to change anything. Just use the data to tie that to the building management system, and you can do the savings that are equivalent to what you can do with a new building. So that is what lighting has catered for always, right? Lighting has always been a way to upgrade in a light renovation manner.
You really see that as a starting point of beginning, getting your building a little bit more smart.
Yeah, and the payback times are very attractive. So if you still have old lights, usually when you upgrade to new lights, it's a 2 or 3 year payback time of that investment. And you make your building smart, and you start learning, and you start using the data to become proactive instead of reactive.
So you don't have to wait to 2030 to start doing something. You can do it right now.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So
if I may just add on that, Walter, because I think what Peter said, also in terms of retrofitting existing buildings, because you said, right, like, currently if you have 90% of the stock which already exists in terms of buildings, what can you actually do? So retrofitting buildings with the wireless sensors definitely helps. Of course, with new buildings, you have the benefits that you're starting from a plain canvas. But in existing buildings, which currently exists, retrofitting is one of the easiest way, including the connected lighting applications, and as Peter said, getting the information to cloud and then further optimizing it, or let the information be on premise for some of these systems.
Yeah, for sure. And then I have one more question, because like you said, you made a nice analogy about the cars versus the buildings. I like that very much. And there is a lot possible, a lot that we can learn from different kind of industry to make our buildings also as smart as a self-driving car. But which value case do you see happening right now the most for building owners? Because for them it's difficult to make it to make a starting point to start or make them buildings smarter, because they don't see the business case yet. Which kind of business cases have you seen over the past few years?
Atul, you want to start, or shall I?
Yeah, sure. I can take it. Yes, I think again a fantastic question, Walter. I mean, what I am seeing for sure is that the easier way is improving the energy efficiency as a starting point. So really looking at, where can buildings actually be more energy efficient, whether it is to do with connected lighting, whether it is using retrofit solution, because these are, let's say, the smaller steps which can be taken by the individuals and organizations. And once again, as Peter said earlier, that once you have these systems in place, the early adoption, wireless sensors in place, then you can build it from there. Then you can have, then you can think, okay, I'm bringing all these other systems together. How can I use the data better? How can we work on our company's larger goals? What can we do in all the buildings together? How can we get all the data? So that I would say, in terms of the steps that you take, the easiest step would be in terms of retrofitting, and then from there on, look at what are the other value adds? How can we increase value? But we have to make a start, and that could be perhaps one of the starts.
Yeah, cool. And then maybe the last question, a quick question: which building are you most proud of right now in the world? Would you say, well, this building is really amazing?
Yeah, I can't disclose any buildings. I'm sorry for that.
Yeah.
I need to get permission for that. So perhaps the Edge building in Amsterdam, right? It's often been used.
Yeah.
And it has put us on a good learning curve. We have done amazing things after it, and we still work together with the company that developed this building. So yeah, that is definitely our most iconic starting point of this future of connected lighting. Maybe I give you one more data point, Wouter. The light renovations, as Atul described them, right? Renovation by wireless sensors. In some markets, it's already 25% of our business. So it's happening everywhere.